Welcome to the Revolt Gaming podcast, the podcast where we talk about the decline of everything, but mostly video games. My name is Aiden.
And I'm Matt.
And today we're going in a little bit of a different direction. We were planning this episode specifically, but then someone actually asked during the last episode we talked about D&D, and they're like, "Do you actually play D&D?" And I was like, "Yeah, we play D&D."
Yeah, a lot.
This episode is already planned, but like now even more so, like to that person, like, yeah, we play D&D, so yeah, we'll have that for you. Before we get started though, make sure you hit that subscribe button, join the revolution, add your voice to ours, share this around, especially the people you think need to hear it. I actually don't have a ton to talk about before we actually start the actual episode. I have not gotten a chance to play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 yet. I've been really excited for it, and I did get it, and I have it right over there on my shelf, but I have not been able to play it yet because I've just been nonstop busy. So I'm hopefully going to start it today at some point, so I'll have an opinion about it next time. I have been playing the first mobile game I've ever enjoyed, though. It's called Bleach Brave Souls. I'm probably like late on the party of this for sure, but like I got really into it recently, and it's a lot of fun. Unlike most gacha games, it doesn't try and take your money. It just kind of rewards you with the currency you need to get the roulettes, basically, for whatever you do. Like everything gives you currency, so you don't have to buy it. And it's even a thing where like I've looked at the prices for buying the currency, and they're really bad deals on purpose. It's like you do not want to buy this.
Yeah, just play it.
Yeah, I think it encourages you to play it, which I think is really nice. They do release packs that I'm sure people buy though that they're pretty decent. Like they basically, it's not so much the currency, but there's like the tickets you get that specifically like will say like, yes, you guaranteed get like a high rank like unit basically.
Really?
Yeah, but that's what I've been up to. Not much really. We're ready to talk in some D&D and stuff, so yeah.
Oh yeah. The only thing I have to add is, did you see that tweet that went around a little while ago? Like what, maybe like 2-3 days ago now?
Yeah, the Naughty Dog tweet.
Yeah, saying that The Last of Us 2 is the greatest video game ever made. That's a really ballsy statement. I haven't played it, so I can't really voice on it. I just wanted that to be known that that's how much of their own brand they're drinking on. So
it's a very ballsy statement, and as someone who has played it and does really like it, I feel like that's just like a blanket statement. I think I would be okay with it if they were like, well, yeah, it's one of the greatest narrative pieces. And be like, sure, absolutely. But like we talked about this last time, like they did not break the mold of survival horror shooter games with that game. As for gameplay wise, it was just okay. I mean, it was satisfactory. It was good. It didn't blow me away at all. It didn't make me go like, wow, this is so cool. It was just like, yeah, it's another survival horror shooter game. Great. The story is what makes that game good. So it really is a blanket statement, and I don't know, dial it back a little bit. Take about 20% off there, bud.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all I got for like opening speeches, I suppose.
Yeah, one thing we're going to talk about for sure is, and I want to get this out of the way now because with the internet you have to clarify, a concept I'm really tired of in D&D, pretty much anything, but with D&D I experience it the most, is people keep saying that you're gatekeeping something. If you have an opinion, you're gatekeeping. That's not what gatekeeping is. Gatekeeping would be specifically if I was like, you can't enjoy this unless you enjoy it the way I enjoy it, because if you're not enjoying it the way I enjoy it, you are wrong. That's a gatekeeping statement. The things that we're going to go over today, they're not based on like you have to do it the way we're doing it. It's after many years of being in the hobby, you start to observe certain problems, and especially when new people get into the hobby, you start to observe certain problems. And there's a really big difference between gatekeeping, just being protective of something you love, and just wanting it to stay in a good place, or if it's going to evolve into a good place. And there's a lot of stuff now that's not contributing to that. It's creating a hostile environment. It's creating a very, very closed-off environment. The gatekeeping movement, ironically, is creating more gatekeeping. So,
yeah, that's I would agree with that statement. I don't know that anything I'm gonna say really falls into like true blue gatekeeping. I'm very defensive about tabletopping in general, just because a lot of the things that I'm gonna comment on or critique on, specifically in the area of like new players coming into the hobby, or things that most people that are going to continue doing the thing will grow out of naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to accelerate that process because there's a lot of things that happen at the table that I don't think should happen. But I don't think that's really what we're focusing on today. But maybe in the future we can talk about a little bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so what's your background with D&D? Like, how long have you played?
Okay, so I started playing.
Well,
With,
maybe not D&D, tabletops in general. Like, we say D&D, primarily I'll talk about D&D, but tabletops in general, you know.
well, D&D was my first.
Yeah.
I started with 4th edition back in 2010.
Okay.
So I really enjoy doing that. I've been dabbling in the world, but like actually playing it. Like I started quote unquote DMing sessions when I was 14, but I didn't really have a great command, so I don't really count those sessions. I will say that I've been introduced to it. That was 3.5 when I was 14, but actually like into it full bore would be 2010, playing 4th edition with my friends. I really like doing that. That was fun. Some of those first game sessions are my favorites, just because like none of us knew what the hell was going on, and it was constantly referring back to the rule book to figure out how you handle this exact situation, ridiculousness, standard teenage debauchery. It was awesome.
Yeah, I remember those days for sure. Yeah.
Man.
That was kind of like my later years. I've actually been playing D&D since I was 5, but like 25 years now
Jesus
of
Christ.
playing Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop games. I don't mean to get all deep, but you know, I'll say that's one thing about my childhood I really liked. I mean, my family life was not good. I had a very mess up family life, but the time we all got along and the time everything worked out, I was like, playing D&D. Like that's something that I treasure in that regard, because not only did it introduce me to something I really love, but it also just it was like moments of peace, basically.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part. So I've been playing it for a very long time, so I've got a lot of opinions about that in general. And there's even things like I refer back to older editions where I'll be like, oh, I kind of remember how it did this. Like I kind of enjoyed that. I'd like to see something similar to that now. When it goes to me customizing something, I kind of think about things in that regard sometimes. I do want to get into that because that's something I want to talk about in general. It's just the experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been a long time. I started with 2nd edition, so it wasn't 1st edition, but it was 2nd edition. So not Redbox, but yeah. So I mean, as you can see, I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, it's not just like a new to the hobby thing. Like very deep seated, very, I would say, like foundational stuff. Like my opinion about things, I reflect back on D&D when I review an RPG video game. Like it's neat to see the roots, you know, and where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, there really is nothing like D&D.
No.
And that's the thing. And I think that's I think, you know, a lot of my hot takes, I think, for video games have come from having such a vast array of experience with tabletops in general, because there really is nothing like a tabletop game. As much as they've tried to replicate it in video games, it's just not done to the degree that D&D is. And I think that's part of why my frustration kind of grows as we advance, you know, further, because the capabilities are there, and there's some examples of it doing very well and doing it right, and it's not being done. It's just these very watered down experiences, and it's like, I know you can do better. I know there is better, and I know you can do better. And all those things kind of collide, where I'm like, why aren't you doing better?
Right. That's it. Man, the tabletop dynamic is very hard to nail down, because it's one of those things for me, for like, when it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's so bad.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, honestly.
Yeah, it's either great or horrible.
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of acknowledgement for that, though.
Yeah.
And to know that, like, I'm not just talking out my ass here. Did you ever read Nintendo Power?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, so the last issue they ever did, it came out, I don't even know when. I'm not even going to try and spitball it. It was a while ago, but they went through the top 100 RPGs of all time. And not just from their brand either. Like, everything. The top 100. And at number 2, they had Ocarina of Time, which I feel is a very, very solid place to put that game. And number 1, they said D&D. Like, they said that's the granddaddy. Like, that's where it all comes from. So even they acknowledge, you know, that D&D is important. It's formative. It's the start of everything. Like,
Yeah. I think that something that is lost is the appreciation for the older stuff, especially with tabletops, because a lot of people look back on older editions of D&D and be like, oh, it's antiquated. Like, that's really boring. That's really whatever. It's too much. It's whatever, you know. It's too hard, you know, like, it's antiquated. And I don't know. I really don't think that, and this is another big problem I think video games have, is that as we move forward, like, you're forgetting the stuff that you should care about. You're forgetting where you came from, you know. And like a core thing with D&D comes from Tolkien. Like, Tolkien inspired the fantasy genre 100%. And if you look back at what Tolkien was doing, like, he was just being creative. He made his own language, he made his own races, he made his own everything. He's like, I just want to create this world. I don't know why, I want to do it. And that is a pillar that Dungeons and Dragons always has. Like, be creative, do your own fucking thing, like, make your story. That's what this is for. And it's just not, it's something people forget about, because it turns into this whole, like, I'm gonna fucking attack you for this, or I'm gonna power game my way out of this, or I'm just gonna ignore 80% of the content and just focus on this one element and just try and bypass all the content. And it's fucked up. It really is, you know. And I don't know how we got so divided to where there's a point now where, like, there's either a roleplay community or there's a combat community, but there's no in the middle. And, like, I'm very much like a why not both.
Yeah, totally.
I want a satisfying combat encounter, but I also want a satisfying story. I want to be able to enjoy the story, you know, and feel like I'm impacting it in some way or growing from it in some way, you know, like, it. Why not both? Just why not both, you know?
Why not do both? Yeah. Something I've always found, even though it's been around since Redbox, but the idea of modules. Like, I would much rather, not to say that I don't enjoy playing some of them, but I would much rather play in someone's head for a while. Like, with the world they created, they're just using D&D as like a means to an end, like a vehicle to get you into their world and use its rulings. Like, I prefer that over a prefabricated storyline. Like, I want to know what you think. Like, I want to see what your brain is capable of making me experience, and to see if it's impactful or not, you know, or just to see what's going on in your head. I think that D&D is one of the few portals that you have to that, especially as like a creative who likes the flavor of fantasy. Like, what better way to see how their world operates or how their brain works? Like, I think it's great for that.
One thing I've observed is that there's different kinds of DMs. It's like some DMs do much better with a module because they want something in front of them to be like, I just have to follow this, basically. I loosely follow this, it'll be fine. Other DMs, like myself, like, I don't like modules very much. Like, I love playing in them. I love a good story, and like, I like to play in a module. Because a lot of them, I like the story or I like the premise for. I'm like, this is a cool premise. I just don't want to run it. I'm actually going to be running, like, one of the few modules I've ever ran in my group later on this month, just because, like, we had to take a break from our normal thing, and like we're still wanting to play, but like we're still wanting to kind of like get people together again and figure that out. So I'm actually running the module for the first time in probably like 10 or 15 years.
Jesus.
So that'll be fun. But, you know, in general, I do better without restrictions. I like to customize. I like to create my own encounters. I like to do all kinds of stuff. And sure, with a module you can do that, but you have to, I think you have to really know the subject matter, because you can easily fuck it up, and you can easily like destroy something that's like a key element of the module.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then at that point, it's all on you to be like, well, how do I connect these two pieces again, because I broke it. So
yeah, and it's much easier if you're running your own head, you know, like,
yeah. I can say with my own worlds, like, I know them inside and out. And it's like, yeah, there are those players that like to, you know, quote unquote, like, you know, surprise the DM or like do the unexpected thing. And like with my games, like, I just know it so well that there's nothing that surprises me, because anything a player does I can account for immediately. I'm like, oh, you did that, I'm pretty sure this would happen because this is what the area you're in, the timeline you're in, the month you're in, like whatever. Like, I know it inside and out. So
yeah, totally. That's the advantage I found too, like, which led me to make my own world and eventually my own system for reasons I'll get to later. But yeah, it's really like a load off my shoulders when I'm using my own world because I know how it operates. You know exactly what you're saying. Like if this situation plays out, I know the outcome, one way or the other, because it's my world.
Yeah.
Literally my world. I made it.
I can say the closest I've ever been to being surprised in one of my games is a player used a spell that they've never used before, and I just wasn't expecting it to happen because like they would have had access to it for a very long time, but I didn't know they had it, and so this was the first time in like 18 levels of play.
Oh jeez.
That they're like, oh wait, I have this spell, I'm gonna use it, and I was like, oh, all right.
Oh neat. Okay, cool.
So like that completely changed it. It saved one of their party members' lives. So
dude, awesome.
it was a cool scene. I mean, it was like it wasn't a surprise in like a bad way. It was just like, oh shit, I didn't realize you could do that. All right, cool. Well, let's see if it works. You know, because in this particular instance, it was a counter spell. So it was like you have to, for a certain number like level of spells, you have to roll against it. Sometimes you can outright just be like, nope, it doesn't happen. But other times you have to be like, all right, we're gonna roll, see if it works. You know.
Cool.
So it led to a very cool moment of like, all right, go ahead and roll. You know.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good surprise.
Yeah, that was a great surprise. Like that is something in the I got to kind of like I like to narrate as much as I can, so I could play with narration a bit. And I won't go into it all the way, but it was fun, you know. But that's pretty much it. Something I think there's going to be a theme to a lot of things I say today.
Same.
Because it's something that I've observed going forward. And you know, starting off with that theme and like the concept is like, you know, the internet has gone into a very big direction of like, let's play online. Let's play D&D online. And you know, it has its merits. If like your friend moves across the country but you still want to game with him, great. When the pandemic hit, my group played for, you know, a few sessions online because, you know, obviously the pandemic, you gotta be safe. And that was helpful to let us keep going. And not to just like hard stop. But I have to say the online D&D culture, it really makes me sad. And it really, not just for myself out of like my own opinions, but it makes me feel bad for people who are getting into the hobby. And that's their first experience is like an online D&D session. Yeah. Because there's so many different things that they're missing out on. As well as there's a lot of things that they're being exposed to that they don't have to be exposed to that you would not get if your first session was at the table. There's a potential, obviously. You never know what people are going to do. But there's a commonality of what happens on the internet. It seems like the internet's a very depraved place most of the time. Yeah. And you just run into a lot of weirdos. And it's like, you know, I can say this from experience, not just first learning to play D&D, but as I got older and started playing with other people, I experienced new things I've never experienced before, where I was just like, oh, this sucks, you know? These are very negative experiences. So anyone who gets into the hobby, they're probably going to have either a good experience or a bad experience. It's going to happen regardless. That's kind of how it goes. And I've had a lot of people come to my table who are like, yeah, I'm burnt out. Like, I've had really bad negative experiences. I'm like, you know, let's see if I can fix that, basically. So everyone's had their negative experiences, but it seems like the ratio tips more to negative on the internet. It's just more negative experiences. There's a whole community for it where you sign up on Discord basically like to join a server and like play in a random game with people you've never met before, and like
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, no, it's big. And I mean, people use D&D Beyond and they use Roll20, and it's like it's a whole online setup. And there's even a YouTube channel that is dedicated to telling these horrible horror stories about things they've experienced online. Like they have people submit stories of like, yeah, I was playing online and like this horrible thing happened. Granted, the channel is not based around online specifically. It's D&D horror stories in general.
Just period, okay.
But I'd say easily like roughly 90% of the stories are like, yeah, I was playing on Discord, I was playing on Roll20, I was playing on, you know, and like it just seems to shift into that ratio a lot. So I don't know. I mean, with the online culture, you're gonna have those people that are. There's a lot of weird people who want to like ERP with any girl they meet because it's probably the first girl they've ever met, or they're very sexist or very just homophobic in some way or just something along those lines.
Just things that you probably, if you were coming to a group of people, even if you didn't know everyone, if you knew the person who was bringing you into the group, you'd know the kind of people they hang out with, most likely. And you probably wouldn't get exposed to something like that. Because that's not probably something your friend would tolerate. or if they did,
Hopefully.
like, yeah, I'm just saying, like, nothing is guaranteed, but none of the people that I've ever brought into a group, like, one of the first conversations we have at session 0 is all about what is off limits to you. Like, I just like knowing that in case there's something that might brush up against that concept.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to ask.
Yeah, I ask everyone to respect everyone all the time, and it doesn't seem like, from what you said, that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, I mean it's kind of like being thrown to the wilds. I mean, you just kind of join the game and hope for the best. And I've got a friend who does this. Who like, I mean, poor guy. Like I introduced him to D&D, and he had to move away.
Oh damn.
And like no one around him plays, and he's always like, "Oh, we should play online D&D." And I was like, "Man, I would love to if I can get everyone together, but like it's not that easy to get everyone together. Like our schedules just do not click." You know, I'm not saying I don't want to, but like our schedules do not click. And so he'll talk to me about it. He's like, "Yeah, you know, I'm joining this game today. I'm joining this other game on the other day." And it's just like, dude, you're bouncing around a lot. Like you're having fun. And he's like, "Yeah, no, I just want to play." So it is what it is. I'm just like, it's not a good mindset, man. It's really not.
No, that's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, an expression I've heard recently that I appreciate is, you know, no D&D is better than bad D&D.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, you know, it's a philosophy I've lived by for a long time, but I didn't have a word for it or like a phrase for it. But
Yeah.
like hearing it now, I'm like, oh yeah, totally. Because I mean, I just burnt out at the table. I quit playing D&D for like, how old was I quit playing D&D for like 10 years. Or a little bit less than 10 years, but like I was just so burnt out with my experiences that either playing as a player or running the game as a DM, I was like, I'm really fucking sick of this.
Yeah.
And I got to that point of like, I'm just not going to play anymore. Like I just don't want to play anymore.
What broke that out for you?
A lot of support from friends actually. It randomly happened where a bunch of my friends were like, "Hey man, I'd love for you to run a game. Like I'd love to know what that's like, and like, you know, it'd just be cool to play." And I was like, at first it was that kind of like, well, I guess I'm the only one here who could run a game. You know, do I want to do that? Sure, maybe, you know, I don't know. But then there's just a lot of support, and like I kind of fell back in love with the hobby. At first it just started off as like kind of playing it, but in preparation for doing it, I was kind of looking up like self-help stuff where I was like, how do I like not feel burnt out? Like how do I not hate this anymore? How do I get back into a positive mindset for it? And there, you know, to my surprise, like in the last that 10 years or whatever, however long it was I wasn't playing, like it had emerged. It got very popular. Thanks to Critical Role, it got very, very popular. And so there was all of a sudden a lot of opinions. And there was also a lot of people just like me who had been like, yeah, I haven't played for a long time, but like my spirit's been renewed for it basically. Because of this, and this. And I was like, okay. And just kind of reading those stories of people who like got back into it and they're really happy they got back into it. That kind of renewed my courage. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give it a try. So I ended up doing that, and yeah, I've been playing ever since again. So
Awesome, dude. That's good to hear.
yeah, I did start back playing 3.5 in Pathfinder, but I very quickly like decided to learn 5th edition, and I'm very happy I did that. I never really liked 3.5 to begin with, but it's what everyone played, so it's what you play. I only played exactly one session of 4th edition, so I'm not a person who can be like, I don't have an opinion about it. I can just say in that one session, I was like, I don't know, it was okay. Like,
It's not great. It's not bad.
Well, I feel kind of bad about that because I don't know if I can say 4th edition wasn't good because I didn't like it, or because like maybe the DM wasn't very good, or maybe the session wasn't very good. I thought I really just feel like it was okay. That was it. It was okay.
4th edition is the reason why I feel the way I do about classes. It was because of the way 4th edition was structured.
Yeah.
If you multi-classed in 4th edition, pretty much the only reason to do it would be to metagame, and that's what I was dealing with at the time. So that's kind of given me my own personal hatred against the idea of classes, which I'll get to later. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, it's just how I feel about it.
I can say with 4th edition, the impression I got just from all my experiences up to that point, the impression I got with 4th edition I was making my character was it was too little. And that's what 4th edition kind of felt like, is it was too little.
Yeah.
It just, there was not enough to it was like its own form of rigidity almost, because it was like you have these things you can do, and that's it. And it's like, okay, so like, where's my flexibility here? I will say this though, I mean, like it seemed like, I think about things from both sides of my brain, you know, the DM brain and the player brain. It really felt like it linked itself very well to being like, if you're a very creative DM, fourth edition will work very well for you, because kind of the same thing. There's not as many structural pillars there, so you don't have as many limitations to your creativity. And that concept did graduate in the fifth edition, because fifth edition feels like a more fleshed out fourth edition is what I would say.
Yeah, and they got rid of
daily powers and
dailies,
shit like
at
that.
wills, encounters.
Yeah, that I didn't like that. As soon as I read it, I was like, nope, I don't like this.
Yeah, we played it as it sat for like 2 campaigns, and then my buddy Brandon just was like, hey, let's go on a limb, let's take the limitations off these, let's say that you can use these whenever you want. I was like, okay, so we just did it for funsies game like that, and it gets broken real fast. And then we went back to playing it as it lie, but with one house rule, which was whenever you flavor your attacks, like the mage has the spell sword has a power called Green Flame Blade, which the only description on that power states that you just engulf your sword in green flames and it does more damage. And it gives you like the actual how to calculate how much damage it does on the power. But the house rule was, if you're going to use your at-will powers, you could never flavor them the same way twice. So, like, you couldn't just say, like, oh, I'm going to use my green flame blade and hit them. Like, you couldn't say that. You could say that once, but not twice. And it just made everybody be more creative, and that was a lot of fun. And that's like how we ended 4th edition, was playing with that house rule. It was great. It was great.
Green flame blade is a cantrip now, so you can basically use it whenever you want. So
cool.
Yeah, I mean... And I think that that's a value you have to playing at the table with people, is you can have those kind of conversations. You can have that thing, like, with people with Discord generally, like, you know, obviously if you're busy, you can have a time limit or anything like that. But with Discord especially, it's like, a pet peeve I have with online stuff in general is I hate when people have scratchy ass mics. I hate when I can't hear somebody. I hate when there's a lot of static or something like that. I hate when I can't tell when someone else is talking or not talking. So I either hate being interrupted, or I hate interrupting somebody else, or I hate when everyone is talking over each other. It's just a clusterfuck. It's chaos, you know. And the other thing too, and like, this is less about D&D, but just the internet in general, like, it has made far too many people comfortable with being a fucking weirdo, or being a creep, or being really sexist, or being a dick, and not getting punched for it.
Yeah, totally.
And that is kind of what you have with these online D&D sessions. It's like, you have a lot of people who are just like, I'll do whatever I want because there's no consequences.
Yeah, getting real brave behind a screen.
Yeah, and, you know, at a table, if someone says something like really fucked up, like, you're probably gonna get hit, or at least told to get the fuck out, you know?
Yeah, there's gonna be repercussions of one kind or another.
Yeah, and you just don't have that on Discord, and part of that as well is, I think it is desperation. Like, a very common thing I heard in those D&D horror stories I was talking about is like, people were like, from session 1 were like, okay, this is fucked up, but they were like, you know what, I want to play D&D, so I'm just gonna keep going. And so it always got progressively worse, as is the nature of these stories, you know. And so combining kind of that element of like what I heard from other people, from this YouTube channel, from my own experiences, because I've played online before, I've tried it out. Yeah, same thing really. I mean, it's not a great environment, and I feel bad for people who that is their first exposure to it.
Same.
Just like I feel bad for anyone who's like, yeah, I used to play like a couple of years ago, but like my table was really shitty. I feel bad for you in that regard as well. You know, same thing. Like, it doesn't feel great either way.
No, like I said before, when it's bad, it's really bad.
I have to say as well, I mean, and there's a lot of caveats to this. I mean, if you're a very anxious person, for example, or very, like, you know, socially awkward or introverted, whatever, you know, I understand that this may not vibe with you in this regard, but, you know, there is no substitute for sitting at the table with everyone and having that experience.
Yeah.
I can assure you of that. I will stake my life on that. I will whatever for that, because it is a very, very different world. It's a very, very different experience. Just the raw energy of like what everyone's feeling or what everyone's doing, or like when things are going really, really well, that is such an uplifting experience. even when with my group who we play in person, but even in my group when we were doing Discord on because of the pandemic, like it just wasn't the same.
No.
Like there was still a good vibe there for sure, but it just was not the same.
No, it's canned and filtered.
Yeah, exactly.
Not I want the real deal, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like a collective gasp when something happens, or like when a plot twist is revealed, or something like that. That's just that table or that energy, table energy, I guess you cannot beat. And you can call that an opinion all you want to. It's an opinion, but it's one I've experienced. I've dealt with both sides now, and I gotta say, there's definitely a preference. And this is not me saying that you can't enjoy D&D online. In the same regard, I've talked a lot about the negative. I've heard people who are like, no, my online group is great. But again, the thing I want to say with that is that, coincidentally, a lot of the people who are like, yeah, my online group is great. It's like, oh yeah, well, we all know each other in real life.
That's what I was gonna say. The closest to an online experience I have was Skyping in a friend of mine's wife. She lives in Australia, so there's really no way to get her at the table other than with Skype at the time, and that was great. Like that was great. It was a great way to have her included and stuff like that. But when she came to visit and actually got to sit at my table and play, like way better experience.
Yeah.
So like that's the only experience I have with like online play, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's something I'd be interested to hear though. I mean, tell me if you only play online with strangers or people you've never really met, or like whatever. Tell me if you have a good group or not. Tell me if like I'm wrong. Tell me if you hit the jackpot and you met some random people and they were really cool. Because I'd really like to hear a positive side of that. Because at this point I have not experienced it, and I have not heard about it beyond in those mediums. And going beyond like playing online as well, I mean the internet itself, like the culture for D&D on the internet is bad because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And misinformation, I think, is one of the biggest things that can really fuck up a session quickly. And even before online D&D became a thing, it's like you have all these like bullshit Wikipedia pages or all these bullshit like whatever because people can't afford the books, and that's understandable. Or these like apps that they're free apps for a reason. Like the misinformation is there, and a character gets really excited and they come to the table and they try and do something like your character can't do that. That's not how that works. Like that ability is way off.
Yeah, it's not how that operates.
It completely derails the session because they're like, oh, well, I don't want to play this character anymore. And it's like, okay, well, we'll work with it for now, but like you have a choice there to either like put the whole thing on hold for everybody or just roll with it and let it be this really stupid thing. And the thing is, like, that's transference, because if if you say one player plays with a group that they're like, oh yeah, that's totally how it works, and they come to another table and they're like, yeah, that's not how that works. That's transference. That's conflict, because that player now assumes that works like that, and they're not knowing better. They're not learning better. And it just creates misinformation. It creates frustration. It kind of ruins the fun for everybody because you have to correct it. Like at a certain point as a DM, you have to correct it and be like, no, like that can't lie. Like that's not how that works. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, that's just not how that rule works, or that's not how that ability works. Like, I'm sorry you think that, or you were told that, but I've dealt with that particular instance so many times. Because it seems like every new person I was meeting was like, yeah, I have my character on my phone. I'm just like, what do you mean you have it on your phone? Like, oh, I have this app that makes characters for you. And I'm like, let me look at it. Yeah, half this wrong. No, half this is not correct.
I like your concept, but we need to actually get the real rules in place. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not dealt with that specific instance. What I've dealt with in the past is I dread the phrase, well, my old DM did X.
Yes.
And this seems to be like the modernization of that. It's like, well, your old DM wasn't playing by the rules. Like, I'm sorry, that's not how cover works.
Yeah. But I mean, you can see how that's an experience I've had many times in person. Imagine that on the internet. It's got to be tenfold. Like, you've got to have people bouncing from digital table to digital table, hearing different rules or rulings or judgments or like character creation processes or whatever. And, they're just trying to have a good time. And they're like, well, I've heard it like 10 different ways. Which one is it? I've also heard of, I think the most tragic story I've ever heard is when people just, they give up, where they're just like, yeah, it was too complicated to get into, or it didn't make any sense, or it was just like I heard things different ways and then I stopped playing because I didn't know it was right.
Yeah.
And people have, people have gun shyness with that, where they're like, it maybe not be that they don't want to play D&D, but it's like they don't feel like they can. They don't feel like they are able to do it.
Or they don't want to feel humiliated multiple times because they can't get the correct information.
Yeah.
That's a thing too.
And so this is what I'm saying. It's like, it's not that you can't have good online experiences, but we have to acknowledge that, like, there's a lot of negativity with it, and that's a problem. Because this is shaping a culture. Like, this is a new way to get into D&D that has become very, very big, and this is like a very negative spot of it. It's obviously I don't have the numbers for sure. I've never surveyed every single person in the world, but it seems to be that, like, it shifts towards negative more than positive. And that's a problem because, for new people, for veterans like myself, like, I would hate to get into a game like I have with online players where I'm like, that's not how that works, or like, what do you mean I can't do that? Like, I absolutely can do that. That's how the rule works.
Yeah.
And you run into the situation of like, well, either I'm the asshole or I just don't get to play D&D.
Yeah, totally. That really sucks, especially like coming from a quote unquote position of power. Like, knowing the material and having somebody try to check you on it when they're wrong, or like, again, that's not fun for anybody, and it brings play to a grinding halt because now you're arguing over rules. You ever been called a rules lawyer before?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely exists. That's a real thing, for sure. But I think it's a really big difference when you know the rules, and you're just trying to be like, well, hey, like, I'm trying to, like, I've only ever done it as a player. Like, obviously as a DM, you have to hold people's hands sometimes and be like, well, no, you can't do it like that because that's not the rules say, but like, you can do it like this, or like, you even get that power of being like, well, that's creative. Like, let's see. I'll say you can do it like this. We'll see if it works that way. But as a player, when you're playing, the DM like makes a bad call. Like, I try very hard to not call out the DM. I try to be respectful and just be like, oh, okay. But there have definitely been times where I had to be kind of like a dick about it, and, well, not a dick, but like a rules lawyer about it, and be like, well, no, like, my character can do that. Like, that's what their powers are. I'm allowed to do that.
Here, let's take another look at the character sheet. Or like, yeah, there's definitely a right and wrong way to do it, but
I think when it comes to a point where, like, if it's like a call or like a roll or like a whatever, and it's like, all right, whatever, it's fine. But like, I only start getting defensive when it's like, no, like, my character literally can do that. You're saying I can't. Like, no, I literally can do that.
Yeah.
That is what I'm able to do. That's the point of me playing this character specifically.
Yeah, check it out. It's on this page. Like, it says it right there.
And I always try and handle it respectfully, obviously. It's not like I call them out and I'm just like, fuck you. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
I'm always just like, oh, no, like, I can do it. Like, I can send you the information for it. Like, this, I can do it. And I think that comes from an experience in itself, because you have people that get, DMs get very... DMing is hard, Like, you want to feel like you want to feel confident. You want everyone to believe in you. You want everyone to believe that, like, you've got your shit together. So when someone calls you out and you're just like, oh, shit,
Spotlight, and it's hot under there.
Yeah. And that's advice I would give to a DM is, don't let that happen to you. Don't be afraid of making a mistake, because everyone makes mistakes. It's normal. I would say I confidently know 5th edition inside and out. There's not much I don't know about it, but there's still things I don't remember entirely, and I'm like, I'm not sure how that works, so let me check real quick. I believe it works like this, but I want to double check.
Yeah.
Or I've even had some of my players who like specifically know the ruling, and they're like, oh no, like, the rule actually works like this. I'm like, okay, cool, like, just show it to me real quick so I can
verify,
compartmentalize that. But yeah, it's not a big deal to get things wrong.
Just turn it into the right experience after, I think, is the big deal. Because anytime I've been called out as a DM and I feel like, I'm right, but turns out I'm completely wrong, there's a right way to approach that too. Like, oh no, it totally works like this. So like, are you sure? Can you show me in the rule book? They show me in the rule book and be like, okay, yeah, cool. I was blatantly misreading that. So this is how it works. Address everyone at the table. Like, man, I didn't know that. That's really cool. Thanks for showing me that. Moving on. And I think, to me, that's the best way to handle it. Like, turn it into a learning experience for everyone.
Yeah, the interesting experience I had with that when I was playing online is that I had the book in front of me,
Yep.
and everyone else was posting in Discord like various pieces of misinformation from different websites. I'm like, guys, I have the book right in front of me.
Yeah, this is the book. The book. The one.
Like, this is what it says. Um, and I ended up taking a picture of it and like put it in Discord. I'm like, this is the book. It's right in front of me. But like, just that experience was so negative because it completely derailed the session, and,
Yep.
and that's not what I was trying to do. I was just like, it was a very crucial point in the fight, and I was like, no, my character can do this. Like, I'm going to die if I don't do this. My character can do this. This is a key ability they have. I can do this. It's either this or I'm dead because I can't do it. That's why I said something, and I was like, no, hold up, like I can do that. You also get DMs who just like they don't. There's that fear of everything being too strong.
Mm-hmm.
There's that fear, and I feel like in this particular instance, that's what it more so was. Was like, I think it was probably in the same boat of like either I'm dead or I'm about to kill their bad guy, and it probably felt like it was too easy or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the vibe I got. Obviously, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It grinds to a halt, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's really hard to catch that momentum back.
Yeah, and it's hard to do it in person.
Even harder.
But it's quicker in person too, because you can just be like,
book.
Here you go, check it out. You know.
Oh, it's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, on the internet though, like that. After that combat got halted, we did not finish the session for like another hour. Like,
wow, that bad, huh?
It was an hour of conversation, and the reason why I got the vibe of like it was more so like a DM insecurity thing, because after I had posted the picture of the book in Discord, he was like, well, I just don't think it would work in this instance. And I was like, yeah, it would. Like, it's an ability that I can just do. Are you kidding me? Like,
what do you mean?
Yeah.
So now you're getting into a much larger and more complicated conversation.
Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
So I don't know. It's just I'd much rather have it handle misinformation than personally on the internet any day of the week.
Yeah. No kidding.
And so there's this app called D&D Beyond.
Okay, what's that all about?
I hate it.
Oh.
I really think that it perpetuates the whole not learning thing that we've been talking about.
Okay.
D&D Beyond's quality, in my opinion, is that of like those late night infomercials.
Oh. Okay.
That are like, do you have trouble cutting an onion? And then there's like a dramatic like, oh, it's so hard to cut this onion. And they're like, well, we have a tool for you. It does all that for you.
Oh.
That is the quality of D&D Beyond. Their advertisement is literally like, hey, let us handle all that complicated math and inventory tracking for you.
Oh.
None of that's complicated.
No.
It's not at all.
You just wiggle a pencil. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. The whole point of D&D Beyond is that it has this whole thing where it supposedly does everything for you. There's two problems with this. The first one being you got to pay for the version that does do everything for you. The free version gives you half rules, gives you half the options. It will make a character for you that is completely fucking wrong. You'll have abilities and feats and stuff you should not have yet, or you do not have. It'll double your proficiencies when it doesn't make any sense. The free version sucks, and it obviously sucks to encourage you to buy the full version.
Ooh, predatory. Is it made by Wizards?
Wizards just bought it. It was a third-party app. Someone designed it, and Wizards are just okay with them doing it. Wizards of the Coast recently just bought it. So I really hope they're going to fix it and make it better.
Yeah, because that's kind of dragging down your brand a little bit.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me if that's why they bought it. It's like they, if there's a company I trust, I do trust Wizards. I mean, I feel like they do a pretty good job of trying to maintain the integrity, at least, of things. I don't agree with everything, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't agree with Magic Duels at all.
Yeah.
I don't agree with... Well, that's its own jade, but... I don't like the way they handle editions for Magic anymore.
Yeah.
I don't like that the decks that I built a few years ago are now considered legacy.
Yeah.
Like...
And that's just the nature of TCGs, unfortunately.
Yep. That's not a shot at them. It's...
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
on. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I used to play Magic too. I get it. That's why I don't play Magic. Is for that reason. It's like
Expensive.
it's expensive, man. I can't keep up with the hobby. Like it's you buy a fucking set basically and build a deck, and then like 3 months later it's obsolete. Like, no, that's its own thing. But
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, this is the offer I'll extend to you. I'll offer you a gentleman's game,
yeah,
and we can just play with metal decks and just have a conversation and play Magic just to play the game.
yeah, no, for sure. D&D Beyond. Oh, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't
No,
mean to do
you're
that,
good.
yeah.
No. I was like, I had like 2 points with D&D Beyond. I was like, did I fucking say that already? Am I stupid? All right. No. So yeah, this is the free version. The free version I feel like is purposely obsolete and stupid and bad to make you buy the full version.
Okay.
The problem is a lot of people can't afford the full version. Like, I think it's a subscription. It's not even like you buy it once and you're done. Like, I'm pretty sure it's a subscription.
Do you have any idea how much it is a month?
No, but I just know from friends who have like talked about it. Like, it's like I can't afford this, or I'm not gonna get this, or whatever. You also have the option of like buying all the books digitally on the app, which potentially could have its benefits. I don't know for sure.
Oh, that's what you're... Okay. Sorry, I put pieces together. Somebody told me about this.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
they told me it was really good.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to...
Well, you gotta wonder. I'd love to know why they think it's good because.
I think it's digital accessibility.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's a purely an accessibility option, that's fine. So there's actually 3 problems with this, actually. The first problem, like I said, very, very watered down free version, so you're going to confuse new players. Again, misinformation. The other thing is, I've had this happen at my table multiple times now. D&D Beyond will do everything for you. It'll allocate your stats, it'll allocate your bonuses, allocate everything for you. You're not learning that way. I have had players' minds literally explode in front of me, deer in the headlights. I'm like, yeah, you can do that, but I think in this situation you wouldn't use your proficiency bonus. And they're like, I don't know what that number is. I'm like, how do you not? Like, you know what your proficiency is? I'm like, no, what is that? I'm like, well, my number is 7. I'm like, okay, well, you would minus this much from it because your proficiency is X amount.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've literally seen their heads explode because they're like, I don't know what that is.
Jesus.
I'm like, you made a 5th level character. How do you not know what that is?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, I use D&D Beyond. Oh, of course you did.
So I don't have to. Okay.
And it's stunting growth because when you get into a new hobby, it's complicated. You don't know the rules. You don't know the situations. You don't know everything about it. It's tough. I fully accept that. It is tough. But the only way to get past that hurdle is to do it.
Yeah, do the thing.
Play it a few sessions. You'll catch on to something eventually. Eventually, one part of your character will make sense. You're like, okay, I understand my attack bonus fully. I know for sure how to calculate that number. I know what it is in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
You'll learn as you go. I mean, the thing you have to remember is, like, sure, I've been playing D&D for 25 years, but, like, I have to learn every new edition when it comes out. And my old experience does not help me understand the new experience because it's all vastly different. They completely change things around with each edition that comes out. So, like, when a new edition comes out, I'm new like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I'm new like everyone else. And so, like, you know, again, saying that from experience, like, just do it a few times, man. Like, I think I played, like, 10 or so sessions of 5th edition before, like, half of it made sense to me fully, where I was like, okay, yeah, I totally understand that now.
Yeah, these are how these numbers play together, yeah.
It was less of the numbers and more so just, like, how certain abilities interact with each other. Because you calculate certain, like, your AC, for example, it's like, there are numerous ways to calculate your AC, but you can only choose one of them. And so I was trying to figure out how they all play together, because there's, like I said, there's so many different ways to, like, change your number. That I was like, well, do all of them stack? So if they all stack, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, totally.
Like, okay, no, they don't all stack. Okay, well, how do they play nice together? Like, which ones do actually stack? Which ones do actually make sense together? So it was mainly just stuff like that I was like, I don't understand this. Because that was a new thing in 5th edition, was that certain classes calculate their AC differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I was playing a monk for the first time in 5th edition, and so, like, they're one of those classes, they calculate their AC differently. And I was also playing a Dragonborn who also can calculate their AC differently. So
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, wait, how do these not stack? I'm confused.
Yeah.
Or, like, how do these attacks things not work? Because, you know, it's a whole thing. But the point is that you learn. You play the game and you learn. That's how you get better at it.
Mm.
And you know, the thing is, like, you can see, like, Critical Role is a very popular medium. you see this all the time, where Matt Mercer, who has just played the fucking game, people will be like, I'm not sure how that works. He literally picks up the book, flips through the pages. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
It's that easy, man. Like, but you have people like, oh, my app's not working, or like, oh, the app isn't working right now, and it's saying that it's this, but that's not right, is it? And he's like, no, that's not right, and he just flips.
Yeah.
Like, it's that easy, man. Like, you're not learning, and like, it gets to a point where people have been playing for years, and they're like, yeah, I'm still not sure how to play the game, because I usually use D&D Beyond, or I usually only use this, or I always have a screen in front of me. That's a whole other thing. But the third and final thing is like that accessibility option. It's like you might think like having your books essentially in your pocket is a good thing, right? And in most cases, sure, it would be. But you know, I've had experiences again where like we went to the coast to get away from technology and like the city and everything, and we're gonna play D&D for the weekend. That's what we were gonna do. And that whole weekend got derailed because one of the people there, like their whole character is on their phone. They couldn't access D&D Beyond because no Wi-Fi, no internet, no nothing. They couldn't play the game.
Fuck.
And that whole thing got derailed because they're like, well, I don't want to make a character. And I'm like, we have the stuff here to make a character. Like, why won't you do that? And like, it's not easy. I'm like, it is easy. What are you talking about?
You have like, what, I assume a group of 5 people who are all probably wealths of knowledge.
Yeah.
Can answer any question that you have.
Yeah. We eventually convinced them to play, and like we did play, but it was like we didn't play that night because that whole night was building the character, and then the second day we played a little bit, and then it was just a very, very slow crawl. And this is someone who's been playing for years. Like, they have been playing D&D for a long time. They should know the rules by now.
And they're just totally crippled without that tool. To me, that's not a tool, that's a crutch.
It is a crutch, absolutely. And, you know, one of my friends had brought this up, that, like, you know, if you have a learning disability, for example, that's great. You know, that's accessibility. But it's not what majority of people use it for.
No.
It is the sake of ease. It is like I get to push a button and the character's made for me.
I mean, I've got the L5R rulebook on my phone. And that's just, again, for ease and price point. But
yeah.
That's a different animal.
So yeah, and the final thing that D&D Beyond perpetuates that I do not agree with, and you know, again, same theme for some of these, it is putting a screen in front of you for a medium that should not have a screen in front of you.
Yeah, totally.
The biggest issue with society today is that you have people who have a screen in front of their face 24/7. Dungeons and Dragons has never been about that. It has always been about coming together, chilling in your mom's basement, drinking soda, eating junk food, whatever it is. When you're older, drinking, you know, maybe smoking weed, whatever you do.
Yeah, whatever makes you happy.
That's what it's always been about. And you're losing that by introducing another way to have a screen in front of your face.
Yeah, at the bottom line, D&D is a social game, and putting technology with it, you're killing the social aspect. Nothing compares to actual social interaction.
Well, you know, going back to the Critical Role thing, like, they're on their third campaign now. In their first campaign, there was no D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond actually sponsored a lot of their second campaign, so that's why they use them so much. In their first campaign, though, there's no D&D Beyond. And you can see over the episodes, the players learning their characters more and more and more as the sessions went on. Campaign 2, they all use D&D Beyond. And you can see a decline in like learning their characters and kind of like that. And that's why we had the situation so many times of like, oh, my app's not working, I'm not sure. And like DM literally just pulls out the book. Okay. Like, it's that easy. Like, it's that easy. I don't understand why it's that hard. It's not. And D&D Beyond is not a positive tool in my opinion. In the few instances where like, yes, if you have a learning disability or handicap in some regard, but you still want to play D&D, great. That's the only positive I can see in it. But without that, it's just another negative trait of the hobby.
Yeah, I will say that barring those instances, like, keep technology out of D&D. I mean, I know people that use like dice rolling apps exclusively. What's the fun in that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the appeal to that at all. I mean, unless you're dealing with games that have very specific kinds of dice that are hard to get a hold of, which I haven't found one yet. Like L5R uses its own dice, but they're not hard to get a hold of.
No, I bought 2 sets of them.
Yeah.
And he says you want to play the game. I was like, all right, we'll get some dice.
Yeah. Still need to do that, by the way. But yeah, no. Sounds like D&D Beyond is not a great tool. Sounds like a really great crutch.
It is, and my only hope is that with Wizards of the Coast buying it, that they are fixing problems with it.
Yeah.
That, for example, a free version of it will not be so fucking awful, and that it will actually be a good gateway entry to being like giving you some basic tools needed to make a character, but it won't purposely fuck you over trying to make a character if you don't pay for it.
Yeah, that seems predatory.
It's extremely predatory, and
like even the 4th edition character builder that we used, the whole point of it was to get everything neatly onto a sheet and then you print it. That was the whole idea, was print this and then take it to your session. Don't bring your whole computer to your session. I've ran with a laptop a couple times, but that's because I had a lot of stuff and I didn't want to shuffle papers with very limited space. So I kept my notes on my laptop, and that was all I used it for. It was just scrolling through notes, which I think is okay. I don't think that's using a screen too much. I could have done the same on my phone, but I just chose to use my laptop because that's what I typed it on.
Yeah.
So whatever. That's my use of technology in D&D, and of course Skype for.
Yeah. This is not an anti-technology thing. This is an only technology thing.
Absolutely.
I think the most depressing video I've ever seen in my life was there's a group of people playing D&D at a table, all in the same room, and they all had laptops in front of them.
What?
Yeah, and they were playing like on Roll20 on laptops at a table. They weren't looking at each other at all.
What?
Yeah.
No way. Really?
That happened, yeah. That literally was like, woke up, and I usually like, I'm a millennial, so I wake up and I scroll through my phone.
Yeah, of course.
And I saw that, and I was like, this is enough internet for the day. I'm good.
Yeah, I quit. Wow. You're so close. You're so close. Yeah, the cool thing about D&D, if you know the system well enough, like if you have a power outage, you can still play.
Yeah.
And by candlelight, it's pretty cool.
We've done it, yeah.
Yeah.
We've done it just for fun. Not even with power outage. We've just done it for fun.
Yeah, yeah. It's good times. Man. Sorry, nostalgia. That's good times.
Yeah.
It's like how cliche can we make this was the whole idea of the session that we played. Like we all wore cloaks and shit. Like the whole 9, dude. Yeah, it was really
I've
awesome.
never gone that far, but that's cool. I do it.
Yep. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, man. But yeah. Is that all you got for now?
Oh no, I got a lot, but I mean,
Oh.
go ahead, man.
We'll keep going. No, you're on a roll here.
Well, I mean, just on the subject of a screen in front of your face, it's like it's interesting because I think that like we're millennials, we grew up before the internet.
Yeah, totally.
And I think what's interesting is that you have people who are completely raised on the internet, who when they were born it already existed.
Yep.
And that's their life now. People like us who did not have it when we were growing up, and then we finally had it, and it's like kind of like learning each trend as it's been introduced. And I really get sad when I think about the ways it's infected our culture. Because think about it, like the precursor to this is like a friend comes up to your house and you're like, hey, watch this funny YouTube video or this Newgrounds video or this whatever I found. Check this out. And that's all you do. I've been to those parties where you just fucking sit there and watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
It's infected our culture in that way now because now we have phones in our pocket that we have access to it all the time. And I can't tell you how many times I'm hanging out with friends. They're like, although all we're doing is sitting there on our phones. They're like, hey, look at this. Oh, hey, look at this. And that's all we're doing. And I'm just like, cool, let's do something else now.
Yeah, let's play a card game.
Yeah. So it's little ways like that that's infected our culture that I don't think people realize. And it's very interesting because you see people like me who is not heavily leaned into it. It's definitely infected my life to a point where like I know when it's not there.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed to admit that when the Wi-Fi goes out, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed to admit that. But it's not something I heavily lean on 24/7. I think if anything, it's more of a thing where like you notice how much it's ingrained into your life, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Deal with it.
And then you have people who have fully embraced it, where like as each trend came out, they gobbled it up, and they're like, yes, more of this, more of this, more of this. And you have people like that who are like heavily ingrained into the internet now. And I really think that's why introvertedness is such a big thing now, because it's very similar to when you're in school, for example, and like a homeschooled kid like joins the class, and like they're kind of fucking weird because they don't really have any social skills.
Yeah.
They've only talked to their mom and dad, and that's it. And so like around their peers, they're not really sure how to act, and they're kind of fucking weird as a result. It's very similar to that when you have people who only exist on the internet. Of course, real life interaction will be hard for you. Of course, that'll be energy you are not used to receiving, and that's going to fuck with you. That's, I understand the affliction very, very well, but I think the reason why it's so common now is because there's a lot of people just don't have social skills. They never learned social skills. They never learned how to exist with other people. And like I said earlier, you have those people like they're too used to the concept of talking shit, not getting hit for it.
Yeah.
There's so many things you see on comments on Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, people saying the most fucked up things. You're like, if you were right in front of me right now, I'd punch you.
Yeah, right in the face.
I used to have a friend who like real fucking mouthy person in general, but he used to go to bars and he got punched in the face once at the bar because he was hitting on someone's girlfriend, and he doesn't go to bars anymore.
That sucks that was the takeaway.
Yeah.
God damn it.
But that's the point. It's like, at least he learned there's a consequence. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, you need that consequence. I'm not saying you should go hit people. I'm just saying that, even on a small term, like if you were in a group of peers and you said something fucked up, you'd be like, hey man, don't say that. That's really fucked up. Don't say that.
Yeah.
Even on a small scale like that, you'd be like, oh shit, I shouldn't say that probably.
Well, I mean, I've seen this situation play out where somebody will make like a fucked up joke or something like that, and then somebody will be like, hey man, that's not cool, like don't say that. And it's like sorry, I just have no filter, or sorry, like they'll have some explain away for why what they said was okay or whatever, and like that really just solidifies your argument that some people are socially inept, and like it's going to take something drastic to get them off of that, or to get them to perceive things differently or think critically. Because I mean, I've worked with people like that just say very, very flatline rude things, and then if you attempt to check them on it, like, an acceptable society check of like, hey, you shouldn't say that, hey, you shouldn't do that, like, oh, well, that's just how I am, because they know at the end of the day they're going to crawl back into their hole and get back onto the platform where that kind of thing is common again. Like, what's the break point on that? Like, how do you correct that, I guess, is the big question.
I think a lot of it's exposure. I mean, I think that if you have someone who hangs out with you repeatedly, maybe they'll grow a little bit if they're exposed to like kind of a different medium. But the internet's a vast medium, and I mean, not all of it's bad. I'm not gonna say it's all bad. I'm not like fucking anti-internet. I'm just anti-internet being ingrained into our lives. Bud Burnham has that great song about the internet. Can I interest you in everything all of the time? That's exactly what it is. Like, there's just so much out there that you have the access to in your pocket. Yeah.
You literally have the Library of Alexandria in your pocket, and you use it to look at cat videos. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So some positive things on the internet, though. Critical Role. I don't know if I'd say I'm like a fanboy, but I do like Critical Role. It's genuinely a group of people who are just wonderful human beings. They really are. And they're actually responsible for bringing D&D kind of to a forefront, where you have a lot of people like myself who, like, because of that influence, was able to get back into the hobby and just kind of feel good about it. And you have people, like I said, the same like me, who like were burnt out for a number of years, and they were like, this makes me want to get back into it, and I'm really glad I did. And as a result, you have people who have a lot of it, a lot of experience to offer in terms of like, well, I've had negative experiences, but positive experiences. Let me offer you a solution to maybe both or something like that.
Sure.
And that's why it's good. The issue with D&D, though, is there's so many Critical Role copycats. It's like they all want to be Mammers, or they all want to be Critical Role. I am not saying that you should not. I think a good DM and a good player, you always learn. I think that genuinely, if you expose yourself to different mediums, like for example, I've played other tabletop games. I've played Vampire the Masquerade, I've played World of the Apocalypse. I've played Call of Cthulhu. I've played
Nice.
random obscure tabletops as well. Like I played like a couple sessions of Dragon Age Origins like tabletop.
Oh wow.
Um, I've played a few different kinds. I've played D20 Modern. That's one I don't really like, but I've even taken stuff from that where I'm like, this has some good points though. Like this has some good solutions to it. You can learn different ways to problem solve, and I think that if you see a DM do something in a way that you like, there's nothing wrong with trying to integrate that into your playstyle and just be like, I really like how they handled this situation specifically. I would like to handle it better as well. I'm going to try and do something like this. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Just right now, they have a mini campaign that I watched, and it was very, very good because they rotate out DMs. They have different DMs. And the DM they had for this mini campaign, I was like, wow, I've never thought about handling characters like that before. The part primarily I liked is that it's a classic situation when you're DMing. How do you get all your players together?
Yeah.
Like, how do you fucking get them together in a way that's not stupid and not like really cliche? And he handled it in such a way where he basically gave each character at the table their own introduction, and then kind of like from those introductions to the world, he introduced them to the world, to the situation, and let them introduce themselves. And then it kind of just like all melded together, and like they all knew each other, like canonically they all knew each other already, so it's probably why that worked. But like it's just such an interesting way to start a session instead of trying to clamor and like have one person do something and hope it connects to a thing you can have the other person do. It's just very interesting, and like so it's something that I actually want to try when I'm running a one shot for a friend when he's visiting this month.
Cool.
And I don't think anyone's going to be connected, so I'm like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see if I can kind of like spin it my way and make it work. But that's what I'm saying is like you can see something someone does and just be like, that's a cool solution. Like I've never thought of doing that before. Let me do that. And same with players. Players can learn a lot from other players. The baseline, like I was saying, like if another player has a shitty experience, you can be like, well, how did you deal with that? There's all kinds of ways to handle that. So I think in that regard, it's great. But you have people who literally are just copying Critical Role, like they're trying to copy it to a letter, to the T. And there's a few problems with that because, for one thing, Critical Role is very story driven, and you have DMs who are like, I want a super story driven experience. That's what I want, but they don't put that near the fucking work Matt Mercer does. Dude puts in a lot of work for the production. That whole crew puts in a lot of work for the production. It's a lot of effort to make a very good experience. So you have DMs who aren't putting in the same effort. You also have players who they want the same experience, but they're not putting in the effort and working with their DM to kind of create something. They're just like they have main character syndrome. They're like, I'm the main character, I'm gonna do it. And it's like you got to work with everyone else at the table. Like it's collaborative. You got to fucking stop doing that. So it's just, I don't think you should ever copy anything, but Critical Role is such a big example of that. Like, don't try and copy Critical Role. Like, stop trying to copy something that already exists. They're all talented voice actors. They all have lots of experience in production. They all have a lot of stuff that you don't have, and that you probably won't have.
Yeah, so lower your expectations. Do your own thing.
Exactly. It's just, I don't know. I think you're also depriving yourself of very unique experiences you can have at your own table.
Yeah, totally.
By trying to mimic something so closely and directly and just like 100%. Some of my favorite things in the world is meeting someone else who plays D&D, and then also having like just that, either before sesh or after sesh, just like, oh yeah, one time I was playing and this happened at our table, or like, here's a funny story I have, or like, here's a really fucked up story I have, or like, here's a situation, those are great. It's like those experiences, there's so many of them, they're so far and wide, and it's like I love hearing about them. And I don't want to hear about this time that you copied the campaign plot point from Critical Role. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't care about that. I have a friend at work actually that the few times that we actually get to work together, all we talk about is either great D&D times or bad D&D times. And unfortunately, both of us have more negative D&D times than we do positive. Or world builds, or character builds, or interesting and obscure things that both of us have played. No, it's just a good time. I know what you're talking about exactly, because I do it as often as I can with Don. It's great.
Yeah, man. I mean, just You really are depriving yourself of what could be a very awesome experience by
Mhm.
being like, well, you're not doing it the way they would do it, so fuck you.
Yeah, I say that's like 90% of my issues that I've had in the past is getting someone to trust me
Mm-hmm.
as a DM. It's like, dude, no, I know this isn't like the setting is similar to X, because it's a fantasy world. There's only like 10 million of those, but
Yeah.
just trust me that that's not how that operates, or just go on a limb with me a little bit, and the story will be richer for that. But no, I've had people that have main character syndrome so bad that they just won't go with you, and if they won't go with you, they won't go with the group, and that just makes it a bad fit. I get tired of those experiences, and I think with like more exposure on D&D and stuff like that, like you ever read the comic book Rat Queens?
Oh, it sounds super familiar, but
It
no.
should. It's based in like world adjacent to a D&D world, but it got really popular a few years ago, like 2016, 2015. Um, my roommate was reading that and then started basing his characters on that, and I was like, dude, are you playing a character that you're making, or are you trying to make one of these Rat Queen characters? He's like, I just think it's really interesting and I want to play that. And then like he would use the comics as like try to extrapolate dialogue and stuff like that. Like it just was a very canned experience, and I was like, dude, if you just play a character that you are in control of, you'd have a lot better time.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of stuff like that. Or like I've tried to run multiple sessions in the world of Dune, and it's maybe just the wrong groups or whatever, but it's hard to get people to make a character in an existing universe and then not try to flow into the main character thing. That's hard to get around, is like when you have all these awesome plot points and all they want to do is use what they know outside of lore to do things that are possible in that universe. It's really annoying anyway. Sorry.
I think what you said about trust is like spot on because I can even say I'm not perfect. I have trust issues with other DMs. And that might be a byproduct of the fact like I'm the forever DM in my group.
Same.
I pretty much DM all the time, and I know what I will do for my players, and I'm willing to do with my players, and so it's very hard for me to trust a character to my DM.
Mm.
When I make a character, if it's especially if it's like a very narrative based background or like a very important backstory or like something like that, it's very hard for me to be like, okay, I'm trusting you, like don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've had a good experience yet, to be honest, with just like entrusting my backstory to somebody and being like, all right, let's see what happens. Like it's usually very, very flat or like it's abruptly ended where it's like, great, we resolved it, I guess.
Mm.
Cool. It's tough. It's very, very hard to do that. I think players as well trusting your DM in general because if you have a bunch of shitty experiences constantly, anytime anyone's like, well, trust me, I'm different, it's like, I've heard that before.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to play as heavy-handed with me. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's tough. So trust is a really, really big thing, and I think that establishing that trust is very hard. And I actually think that's why. When I used to DM, I didn't use a DM screen.
Rolled open.
I rolled open. Yeah. But back when I was getting back into it, just like looking up advice and stuff like that, like something someone said was like earning trust is really important with your players, and that's why the DM screen is such a great tool. Because if you can get your point to your players' trust, you're not going to fuck them over behind the screen. You have a good group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay then. And so when I first started DMing again, I bought a DM screen. I was like, all right, let's try this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can say that's very, very true. Like my players know I live and die by the dice. And anytime I even still show them sometimes where I'm like, I'm really fucking hot tonight. Like I'm sorry guys. Like I'll be like, you can take a look if you want to. Like
Yeah.
And they're never like, oh, let me check for sure. Like they're always like, no, I trust you, man. So it's cool. Like
Yeah. It's such give and take with like trust between players and DMs. I still roll open just because it's especially in my own system, because I'm calculating so much off of 4 dice rolls, and I like them to be able to see too. Partially just because I calculate distance, direction, size, and threat, and I like them to kind of know what they're up against. Like surprise factor is great for stuff that I have in the pocket, but like everyday encounters, like yeah, I want you to kind of see what you're dealing with and make sure that I'm setting things fairly, because my world is built to be slightly unfair. Not unfair. It's just you should really edit your approach to how you handle certain things, which I really enjoy.
It's hardcore. Yeah. It's like Tomb of Annihilation. It's a very, very hard module because it requires a lot of your players because it's very survival heavy.
It's based on the Tomb of Horrors, right?
I don't know for sure.
Okay, because Tomb of Horrors was the Gary Gygax's. You want something super hard? Here it is. It's hard for the sake of being hard.
I don't know if it's based on that or not. They actually released that for 5th edition. Like they modified the rules to just be 5th edition friendly.
Oh, cool.
But it's the exact same thing. It is the Tomb of Horrors, and it's very hard.
Yeah.
And people talk about that on the internet, like, yeah, I did it. It's really fucking hard. And like,
yeah, if I ever like won the lottery, I'd like to get original Redbox D&D books and that module, just for funsies. Just to roll it. I had some original D&D books that I got from my uncle, but I don't know where those are at now. But
yeah, I think the last thing I want to talk about, and this is a really, really gray area for me. It's tough. It's a very tough gray area because on the one hand, as a creator, I encourage people to get their stuff out there, explore your passions, produce stuff. Like do it if you believe in it. Fucking get it out there, man. But there really is a fine line between this because with D&D being such a popular medium now, it's very easy to produce content for it. Doesn't mean necessarily quality in terms of like there are those people who spend the money and hire the artists and hire the people to make an actual module. Like it is a book you can purchase, a physical book you can purchase. That's probably a bit harder. But in general, there's tons of websites. You can be like, here's my homebrew, I posted it, I made it, check it out. There's Unearthed Arcana, which is literally community suggestions to Witches of the Coast, basically. Like they put homebrew into Unearthed Arcana, and if people are lucky, it becomes an actual D&D thing.
Cool.
It's basically like a suggestion box, basically, for Wizards of the Coast. There's a lot of things that have come from that. There's a lot of things I don't like that came from it, but there's a lot of things that have come from that. And so, on the one hand, yeah, it's easy to get your content out there, or easier, I guess, to get your content out there. But the problem with that is there's so much of it that's just not good. It's good is subjective, I understand that, What's bad to me will be good to someone else potentially, probably. If this podcast is any indication, that's normal. Yeah. But the things I observe the most from these modules and these books and these source books and stuff like that is that like it's people who are taking 5th edition and overcomplicating it. The beauty of 5e is how simple it is.
Yeah,
it's no strings attached. Like if you want to make something crazy in your game, fucking do it, because I'm not going to tell you can't. There's only like so many rules that you have to worry about, and that's it. And also, it says in the book, you're the DM, you can ignore that rule if you want to as well.
Yeah, so the golden rule.
You could potentially have even less rules if you want. But 5e is so comprehensive and so cohesive that like you can put anything in the game and it'll make sense if you understand the system. The things I see constantly is stuff that like you overcomplicate those rules. I see magic items that are completely fucking busted. And in the same way, they're really fucking underwhelming. If you look at any magic item in the game, currently, even like the most mundane magic items, they have a purpose in one way or another. You could totally use them for something. But you have these magic items that literally is just that like, well, what if a magic item did this? And like that's literally the thought that must have been put into it.
That's not great.
Like it. I as a player, if you gave me that magic item, I'd be like, thanks. Can I sell it?
Yeah.
Can I disenchant it? Is my enchanting high enough?
No.
And that's just a really big issue. And it also seems to come from a power gaming perspective, right? Because you have people who... I find this especially people who are diehard 3.5 fans. They're always trying to find ways to, quote-unquote, modify 5th edition. And they're always modifying it to, like, how can I be stronger?
Right.
How can I personally be even better than I am currently? How do I one-man show this? How do I eliminate 80% of the session and just skip to the end?
Yeah.
And that's what these source books are for, and that's what these homebrews are for, and that's what you see a lot. It's just like, it's power gaming. It adds nothing to the game. There's some interesting stuff for sure. I mean, there's some interesting concepts that's just like, oh, I didn't think about that, but okay, sure, why not? Why couldn't it exist? And those are the things I think are great. I support that kind of stuff. It's just, I think that when you exist in a vacuum, especially with people who, either only believe in what you believe in or like, whatever, you don't grow from that. And so I think opinions I think that source books like that, where it's like, it's just a unique idea, it does not help, it does not hurt, whatever, that's great. I think it's awesome. That's the kind of stuff I want to see more of. But it's very, very rare I see something that actually does improve upon what 5th edition is, or something that actually is a cool concept or interesting. So there's definitely a negative and a positive to the fact that, like, there's so many outlets for you to put your own creations out there now. And, like I said, as a creator, I encourage you. I want you to put yourself out there. Obviously, I want you to put yourself out there. That's super important. But I can also say from, again, as a creator standpoint, like, you should be sure that what you're putting out there is beneficial, is something that actually is helping, not hurting. You got to stand by what you make at the end of the day.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I guess, to be fair, I don't know that person. If I see something that seems really power gaming, I don't know them. Maybe they are just, it comes from a good place. I don't know that. I don't know everyone in the world. That's very, very true. But it just, that is the thing you observe when you see all, like, this large amount of content digest. And it's just, I don't know, just going back to misinformation like that also can perpetuate that a little bit.
Yeah, it could go back to something you said earlier too. It's like, well, if you know the game, you know that this isn't necessary. It can be accomplished this way, not this overcomplicated paragraph of rule adjustment that you have to do to make this possible.
Well, I've even seen magic items and feats that literally already exist in the game. They're just worded differently, and I'm like, no, this already exists. You rearrange the letters, but this already exists.
Yeah,
this already does that.
RTFRB, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Read the fucking rule book.
Oh. Yeah. And on the concept of, like, power gaming, but, like, not necessarily building your own stuff, it's like, I'll never understand, like, why people would come to a table intentionally to just, like, blow it up or break it or, like, whatever, because, like, it's a dick move for one thing. You're ruining everyone else's fun, and at the very least you're ruining DM's fun potentially, because you're just like, dude, like, I worked really hard on this, and, like, all you did was fucking, like,
add more work,
cut it in half, like, what the hell, man. I think it's great if you can be genuinely, like, unique and, like, something like a surprise, basically a pleasant surprise, great. But you definitely have the players who come to the table with that goal in mind. They're like, I'm gonna surprise the DM, I'm gonna be the wild card, he's never gonna see it coming.
Oh, really?
And you have those players that, like, they'll literally build a raft across a puddle. Like, that's how unique they're trying to be. It's overcomplicated. That's my point. It's overcomplicated.
Yeah.
You can just walk through the fucking puddle. Don't fucking try and come up with a 30-minute plan to cross the puddle.
Yeah, like, some things need to be glazed over, and some things are intended to be glazed over, and some things are not.
Yeah.
Stop trying to bypass my boss fight. Just fight the thing. It's worth it, I promise.
I think another thing with, having your own source books and your own material out there is that it crosses a very fine line too between, like, you're trying to impose your beliefs onto someone else. You think the game needs this because of X, Y, and Z. A good example of that is, I don't know if Wizards of the Coast replied directly to this. I feel like I remember they did make a statement of some kind, but there's this movement a couple of years ago that was getting a lot of traction on Twitter, where they were like, someone was saying, like, oh, we should remove enchantment spells from D&D because it takes away consent, and that's wrong. And it's like, no.
No?
Like, I see where you're coming from with that, but no. Not only in the spells that, take away consent, quote unquote, like, they all specify things like you can't make a person do something they wouldn't normally do, or that would endanger them, or something like that. That kind of stuff is built into the spell already. So, like, if you have a DM who allows something fucked up like that, or you as a player trying to do something fucked up like that, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah, it's the problem is not the spell, it's not the tool, it's the person using it.
Yeah, you cannot create an entire book that does not have enchantment spells in it to, quote unquote, make D&D better. You can't do that. You just can't. And there's something to be said about the people who, you can read some source book materials and be like, this was clearly made because you think this.
Yeah.
Like, or you had a bad experience at the table or whatever. I mean, I've seen videos where people rant about the dumbest things. And I'm like, you're just mad at a player beat you. You're pissed off a player beat you.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Like,
again, like we were saying, I get where you're coming from, but that's not at all how enchantment works. It's the other argument that people make: charisma is not mind control.
it's not.
Yeah, it's another one that I run into fairly often on the old internet.
Yeah.
People saying that charisma is basically mind control. It's like, no, it's not. Charisma does not overwhelm hatred.
Yeah.
It's not designed to do that.
Well, I ran into this, a buddy of mine is like, he's kind of new DMing, so like, I understand why he ran into this problem, but he was saying that, like, I was playing a character that has very high charisma. I was playing a bard that, like, specializes in persuasion. Like, all bards are kind of persuasive, but this particular bard I was playing, like, that's their thing.
Okay.
They talk and that's it. That is the kind of bard subclass I picked. And he was saying that, like, it's really unfair that, like, as a baseline, I have a very high charisma score and a very high persuasion check. And I was like, just because the game says that, like, a persuasion, like, a DC of 30 is, like, godlike. Just because the game says that does not imply auto success. You can make a persuasion check, and it's like, I mean, never minding the fact that, like, some people just can't be persuaded.
Yeah, some people just won't hear you.
Yeah, you can get as high a number as you want to, and it's just like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Because that's not written in their character, or that's not written in the NPC or whatever. But as a DM, you also get to control, like, what success looks like.
Yeah.
If you walk up to somebody and you're like, hey, give me your house, they're not going to say yes. They might be like, you're weird, you know, instead of, like, calling the guards on you.
Totally, yeah.
Because you got a high persuasion check. But they're not going to be like, oh, sure, absolutely.
That's not mind control. It's literally another tool in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, interesting. Like I said, just things I read on the internet. How many people get that wrong? Or how many people get frustrated about that? Those same sentiments. Like, these super high charisma characters are destroying my game. It's like, no, dude, you are allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, as DM, you kind of running this show. So if you need it not to happen, don't let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I should say, like, on the subject of, like, consent spells and stuff like that, like, if that's how you run your game, great. Your own homebrew session, you and all your players have agreed, like, yeah, I agree with that. Great. You're not hurting anybody. That is your choice, 100%. There's no wrong way to play D&D unless you're not having fun.
Yeah, no kidding.
But trying to impress rules like that on the entire community, that's an issue. And you'll notice this whole time, I've never said, like, you should not play D&D on the internet. I'm saying we should fix the problems that exist on the internet.
Totally.
We should fix the problems of why this is an inhospitable place for people to play D&D on the internet. These are all problems, so, this might be considered gatekeeping to some people, but, like, this is just someone who's played for a long time and, wants to see the best for the community.
Totally. I want as many people as possible to enjoy playing the game. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, there are people that are intentionally out there trying to ruin it for other people.
And people who ruin it without realizing it, because, like
Yeah.
I said, they just have not been exposed to enough things because they exist on the internet. Like,
Yeah, it's easy. Just find a rule book.
So yeah, I mean, I guess on my side of things, don't power game, don't be a dick, don't be fucking creepy.
Yeah, don't do that.
And just try and have a good experience for everyone, And no D&D is better than bad D&D. Those are the things you should take away from this if you want to do bullet points.
Yeah, well, you weed through enough sessions and enough groups, you will find your blue chicken of groups. Just don't stop trying. It's a good hobby. That's pretty much all I got, man. Really? Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I got some stuff in the pipe, but I'm gonna save that for a later date.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you have that to look forward to then. So here's what I want to see. If you're on YouTube, I want you to comment any of your D&D horror stories or any of your positive stories, preferably both. If you've got two different ones to oppose that, great. I'd love to hear both perspectives. I'd also love to hear what you guys think of what we talked about. Do you think we're off base? Are you going to call us the gatekeepers in the comments? Tell us what you agree with. Tell us what we're wrong about. We want to hear that. We definitely want to hear from our people listening. That's important. That's what this whole podcast is about, so definitely join that revolution. Hit the subscribe button, add your voice to ours, share this around, and please never ever stop trying to find your own blue chicken.
That's right.